I shared with you that there was a question that had been asked, and I'm going to go ahead and ask it here. That's part of the Ask Me Anything. I will go more in depth when that question comes back up during that series. But the question is, why is it important for believers to fellowship together? The question was asked in light of the pandemic that we are experiencing even today. Many have stopped attending church. So how do I explain from the passage in Hebrew that tells us that we ought to not to be forsaking the assembling of one another? The passage goes on to say in Hebrews chapter 10, verses 24 through 25, let me just read it in your hearing. And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. See, when it comes to the corporate stance, the corporate body of the church, we need to understand as a corporation, we are to be there for one another, to spur one another, to build one another up in the faith so that we together can all cross the finish line. See, it goes on to say the finish line is when the Lord returns, because we know that that day is approaching. We know that there's going to be a day because it has been prophesied. We don't know when. We don't know the time, because even the Lord who sits upon the throne doesn't even know that. But when the Father says and the trumpet sounds and the Lord descends, that day is going to be a glorious day for the believers. But until that time, we corporately need to be there to spur one another on, toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together. Now, let me just share with you. When we're talking about this whole subject of being forsaken, the term means to abandon, to leave helpless, to leave behind. That's what the term speaks to and shares. And so when we forsake the assembly of one another, we are basically leaving those who are helpless in their state of helplessness. We are leaving those who are needing love, need to be spurred on toward good deeds. We're leaving them alone. We have abandoned our obligations to them. And then finally, we leave them behind. And I shared with you, when it comes to River of Life Church and it comes to our task, we ought to be like those who I had witnessed in the Special Olympics that I got to be a part of, that when the young man, he was about to approach the finish line, he seen that those who were running with him were behind. So he turned around, he went back and grabbed them, he grabbed their hands, and they all went across the finish line together. That's what a corporate body of believers is supposed to be about.